Something strange happens when Max Verstappen reaches the middle of a corner. It's not something obvious, and most viewers never notice it during a normal race broadcast. Even experienced commentators rarely talk about it. But if you watch Max's onboard footage carefully, especially in slow motion, a strange pattern starts to appear. Right when most drivers settle the car and hold their line, Max's steering wheel keeps moving. Tiny movements, small adjustments, left and right, again and again. Almost like the wheel never becomes completely still. And according to engineers, that strange little detail might explain one of the biggest reasons why Max Verstappen can carry more speed through corners than almost anyone else in Formula One. Because what Max does mid-corner looks unusual. It almost looks inefficient. It looks like extra work. And yet somehow, it makes him faster. To understand why this strange mid-corner behavior matters so much, you first need to understand what Formula One drivers are normally trained to do. In racing, smoothness is considered one of the most important skills a driver can have. Drivers are taught from the beginning of their careers to minimize unnecessary inputs. Smooth braking keeps the car stable, smooth throttle keeps the tires under control, and smooth steering keeps the grip predictable. The idea is simple. When the car behaves in a calm and stable way, the driver can trust the limits more confidently. Engineers often prefer drivers who make clean, controlled inputs because it helps the car remain balanced. When a driver enters a corner, the usual goal is to turn the wheel to the required angle and then hold that angle as steadily as possible until the exit. That steady steering angle allows the tyres to operate in a stable grip range. It prevents sudden load shifts and reduces tyre scrubbing. The result is usually consistent lap times and controlled tyre wear. Telemetry data often shows that the fastest laps come from drivers with smooth steering traces. Engineers sometimes refer to this as a quiet steering line, meaning the steering angle graph looks clean and stable without sudden spikes. Every extra movement of the wheel costs a small amount of energy. Every correction can increase friction in the tyre, and over a full race distance, those small losses can add up. That is why many drivers aim for the cleanest possible steering inputs. When you look at onboard footage from many top drivers, you can often see the wheel settle into one position during the middle of the corner. The car looks calm and predictable. The steering remains steady. Everything looks controlled. But Max Verstappen's steering often looks very different, and that is where the mystery begins. If you compare Max's onboard footage with other drivers, something starts to stand out. At first, it's subtle and easy to miss. Other drivers turn into the corner and then stabilize the wheel. The movement slows down and the steering angle stays almost constant. The car looks planted and settled. But Max's steering wheel keeps making small movements, tiny adjustments that continue through the middle of the corner. Even in fast corners where most drivers hold the wheel steady, Max keeps making slight inputs. The wheel moves left and right in small increments almost constantly. It almost looks like he is correcting small slides or dealing with instability. To someone watching casually, it might even look messy compared to the smooth style of other drivers. But the strange thing is that Max's lap times consistently show the opposite. Despite all those small movements, he keeps gaining time through corners. Sometimes it's only a few hundredths of a second, but those gains appear again and again. Over an entire lap, those small advantages become significant. And that raised an important question inside Formula One teams. Why would a driver who appears less stable actually be faster? At first, there were simple explanations. Some people believed Max was just driving aggressively and reacting to a car that was always on the edge of grip. Red Bull cars have often been known for having very sharp front ends and sensitive rear balance, and some engineers assumed Max was simply making constant corrections to control small moments of oversteer. The theory was that Max's steering movements were reactions rather than technique. That explanation sounded reasonable. After all, aggressive driving can sometimes produce faster lap times even if it looks less smooth. But when teams started looking deeper into the telemetry data, that explanation began to fall apart. The steering movements were happening even when the car was stable. There were no large slides, no sudden losses of grip, and no visible instability in the data. The movements appeared consistent and controlled rather than reactive. That suggested something much more interesting. These movements were not mistakes or corrections, they were deliberate. That realization made the mystery even more interesting, because now the question was not just what Max was doing, but why it worked. Engineers began looking at another possible explanation: the tires. In Formula One, tire behavior determines almost everything about performance. Grip depends on temperature, pressure, and load. Tiny changes in load can dramatically affect how much grip a tire produces. Engineers noticed that Max often seemed able to maintain front tire grip longer than other drivers, especially in long corners where front tires usually start to struggle. Other drivers would begin to experience understeer as the front tires lost grip, forcing them to increase steering angle and reduce speed. But Max often kept the car rotating naturally through the middle of the corner. When engineers compared steering traces with tire load data, they began to see a pattern. Those tiny steering adjustments were happening right at the moment when front tire grip normally starts to fade. That detail suggested the steering movements might be connected to how Max maintained grip through the middle of the corner. But there was still an important question. If this technique really created an advantage, why weren't more drivers using it? Formula One drivers constantly study each other. They analyze data, compare telemetry, and copy techniques whenever possible. If there was an easy advantage available, it would not stay secret for long. Yet very few drivers showed the same steering behavior as Max. Even teammates driving the same car often had much smoother steering traces. That suggested whatever Max was doing required a level of precision and sensitivity that was difficult to replicate. When the analysis became more detailed, engineers started to understand what those movements were doing. Instead of holding one steady steering angle, Max was constantly making tiny adjustments that slightly changed the load on the front tires. Each small movement shifted the pressure across the tire's contact patch. That prevented the tire from settling into a gradual slide where grip slowly decreases. Instead of allowing grip to fade naturally, Max kept renewing the load on the tire again and again. Those micro-adjustments helped keep the front tires operating near their peak grip level for longer periods. But the advantage was not only about maintaining grip. Those constant adjustments also gave Max continuous feedback about the limit of adhesion. Every small steering movement told him something about how much grip was available at that exact moment. Instead of waiting until the car started to understeer, Max was constantly feeling the edge of grip in real time. It was almost like tapping the limit repeatedly rather than crashing into it. That allowed him to stay extremely close to the maximum grip level without exceeding it. This gave Max a major advantage because by the time other drivers realized they were losing grip, Max had already adjusted. He was already adapting to the changing conditions of the tire. Sometimes these adjustments happened before any visible slide occurred. That allowed him to maintain higher speeds through the middle of the corner without increasing the risk of losing control. The car stayed balanced and the tires stayed within their optimal working range. But the most important effect of this strange mid-corner behavior was what it did to the car's rotation. In Formula One, corner speed is not just about grip. It is also about how efficiently the car rotates toward the exit of the corner. A car that rotates efficiently allows the driver to apply throttle earlier. Earlier throttle application leads to faster acceleration, and faster acceleration leads to higher speed on the following straight. Even a small improvement in rotation can translate into significant lap time gains. Max Verstappen has long been known for his exceptional corner exits. He often seems to accelerate earlier than other drivers and carry more speed onto the straights. When engineers compared steering traces with speed data, the connection became clear. Those tiny mid-corner adjustments helped maintain front tire grip. The extra front grip improved rotation. Better rotation allowed Max to straighten the car earlier, and straightening the car earlier allowed him to apply throttle sooner than other drivers. That strange mid-corner steering movement was actually the beginning of the advantage rather than the end of it. It created a chain reaction that improved the entire corner sequence. And this is where the mystery finally becomes clear. The strange thing Max Verstappen does mid-corner is constant micro-steering corrections. Not large visible movements, but small, deliberate adjustments that keep the front tyres working at their maximum potential. While many drivers hold the steering steady and allow grip to fade gradually, Max keeps the tyres active. While other drivers wait for the limit to appear, Max continuously explores it. While other drivers react to grip loss, Max anticipates it. That small difference changes everything because Formula One performance is built on tiny details. The difference between the fastest driver in the world and the rest of the grid often comes down to small advantages repeated hundreds of times over a race distance. And sometimes the biggest advantage is not something dramatic or obvious. Sometimes it is something as small as a steering wheel that never quite stops moving. Once you notice it, you start seeing it everywhere in Max's driving. Corner after corner, lap after lap, the same subtle movements appear. Almost invisible, almost impossible to copy, but incredibly effective. And it may be one of the hidden reasons why Max Verstappen can drive at the very limit of grip while still looking completely in control.